The first thing I remember is the silence before the gates opened. A silence so heavy it made the air tremble, filled with the breath of thousands of alien spectators waiting to watch another human die. I was the only human left in the Zorthian pits, a slave turned gladiator. My name is Elias Cade, once a soldier from Earth before the war ended in humanity's defeat. We weren't wiped out, just taken. Enslaved, sold, studied. The Zorthians loved strength, and to them, humans were weak curiosities, emotional, fragile, unpredictable. That day, I stood barefoot on the dust of the grand arena, the twin suns burning above me. The air shimmered with heat, and my hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from exhaustion. 20 fights. 20 victories. They wanted a show for my 21st. When the gate across from me opened, I felt the ground shake. She stepped through, a towering figure draped in silver armor that caught the suns like liquid fire. Her movements were deliberate, each step echoing command. The crowd roared her name, Varia. Even the air seemed to bow to her. The Zorthian Warlady, undefeated champion of 6 systems. And now my opponent. I should have felt fear, but all I felt was curiosity. I'd heard the stories, that she was half machine, that she'd torn through entire armies alone. But the moment our eyes met through her helmet's visor, I realized something strange. She wasn't looking at me like prey. She was studying me. The announcer's voice echoed from above. Human versus Warlady Varia. Begin. The gates locked. The crowd screamed. And before I could even blink, she was gone. A flash of movement, faster than thought, and I felt the world tilt. My back hit the ground hard enough to knock the air out of me. The edge of her blade rested against my throat, humming with heat. It had taken her less than a second. The crowd roared in approval. She tilted her head slightly, her voice metallic but feminine through her helmet. Yield, human. I coughed, staring up at her visor, and something inside me sparked. I'd seen that kind of strength before. Cold, mechanical, empty. And maybe that's why I smiled. No, I rasped. If you wanted me dead, you would have done it already. Something in her posture shifted. Just barely. The crowd went silent, confused.
She didn't strike.
Instead, she stepped back and lowered her sword. That was the moment I realized I had her attention. Middle, the challenge of the heart. The fight should have ended there. But it didn't. Varia lifted her weapon again, but slower this time, as if thinking. Stand, she ordered. I groaned, pushing myself to my feet. My ribs ached. The dust stuck to the sweat on my skin. She circled me, eyes hidden behind her visor. You're injured, she said. Yeah, I managed. That tends to happen when you get body slammed by a tank. A flicker of amusement. I thought I imagined it, laced her voice. Yet you smile. Because I'm still alive, I said. And because for a second I thought you were going to kill me, but you didn't. She froze again. Around us, the crowd began to grow restless. The announcer shouted something about blood and honor, but she didn't move. Finally, she raised her blade again. Fight. This time I did. Of course, I didn't stand a chance. Her speed was inhuman, her strength overwhelming. Every strike she threw forced me to block or dodge with everything I had. The arena blurred around us as metal clashed against bone, sparks flying from her plasma edge. And yet, she was holding back. I could feel it. She could have ended me at any point. So I started talking between dodges. You ever... wonder why your people think humans are weak. Her sword hissed past my shoulder. Because you are, she said flatly. Wrong. I ducked another blow, nearly losing my balance. We're not weak, we care. That word made her pause. I lunged, swinging with everything I had. It barely scraped her armor, but it made her take a step back. "You fight with emotion," she said, almost curious. "That is why you lose." "Or maybe," I said, panting, "it's why we don't give up." For the first time, she hesitated. Not out of fatigue, but confusion. Then, in a blur, she disarmed me again, my weapon clattering to the ground. Her hand wrapped around my throat, lifting me effortlessly. Her visor reflected my face, red and sweating. "Yield," she said again, voice lower this time. I looked her dead in the eye, or where her eyes should have been, and said softly, "Do you even feel anything when you win?" That made her freeze. Her grip loosened. The tension in her arm trembled slightly, as if something inside her had cracked. And for the first time since the match began, the crowd didn't cheer. The silence between us stretched, heavy and strange. Then, without a word, she dropped me and walked away. The encounter beyond the arena. I expected to be executed. Instead, that night the guards came to my cell and said the Warlady had requested me. They brought me to a private chamber, the kind reserved for commanders and nobility. The lights were low, and I could smell oil and ozone from the weapons racks along the wall. When she entered, she wasn't wearing her helmet, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. Her skin was the color of molten bronze, faintly luminescent under the light. Her hair, silver white, was braided back tight, revealing markings along her temple that pulsed softly, like veins of light beneath her skin. But her eyes were human.
Brown. Deep.
Tired. She stopped in front of me. "You look disappointed." "I just expected my executioner to keep the helmet on," I said carefully. Her lips curved slightly. "You think I brought you here to kill you?" "Well," I said, "you've got a hell of a way of saying thank you." She stared at me, then sighed softly. No one has spoken to me that way in a long time. I tilted my head. Guess not many live long enough to try. That earned me a quiet, genuine laugh. It was soft but real. She turned away, her back to me. "You asked if I feel anything when I win." "Yeah," I said cautiously. Her shoulders tensed. "I don't. Not anymore." There was a silence then, long and heavy. "I was made to fight," she said. Enhanced, trained, augmented until there was nothing left but reflex and code. Emotion was inefficient. She looked back at me. "But when you spoke, when you smiled after defeat, it reminded me of something I had forgotten." "What's that?" She met my eyes. What it meant to live. Middle, the human and the Warlady. In the days that followed, Varia didn't fight again. The arena buzzed with rumors that she had been dishonored, that she'd lost her edge. But behind closed doors, she kept asking to see me, not as a prisoner, as something else. We talked about Earth, about what it meant to bleed, to feel pain and still smile through it. She didn't understand it. She said humans were irrational, emotional, weak. And yet she couldn't stop asking why. One night I said, "Maybe emotion isn't weakness. Maybe it's armor you can't see." She looked at me strangely. "You think your feelings protect you?" "They make us who we are," I said. "They make us fight back." Something flickered in her eyes then, recognition. Maybe even pain. "I envy that," she whispered. I smiled softly. "You don't have to." Her hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed my cheek. Her touch was cold, metallic at first, then warm. "Humans," she murmured, "always reaching for what they shouldn't." "And yet," I said, "you didn't stop me." Her gaze burned into mine.
"No,
I didn't. Ending the battle for freedom.
it didn't last."
When the Zorthian Council discovered that the Warlady had been fraternizing with a human, They declared her compromised, stripped her of command, and ordered my execution. They underestimated her. The night they came for me, the alarms blared across the fortress. Metal doors melted from plasma fire, and she stood there in full armor again, silver gleaming, her sword humming, cutting down anyone who came near. "Elias," she said, her voice urgent. "We must go.
Now."
"You'll lose everything," I told her. She looked back at me, helmet off now, eyes fierce. "You gave me something worth losing for." We ran through the chaos, smoke, alarms, the hiss of plasma fire. When we reached the shuttle bay, her ship waited. But before we could board, a blast hit her side. She staggered, fell to one knee, armor cracked and sparking. I grabbed her arm, pulling her toward cover. "Come on, you're not dying here." Her voice was faint. "Why are you still helping me?" I met her eyes, that strange mix of light and sorrow. "Because," I said, "you once asked if emotion protects us. It does, because it makes us care." She stared at me, breathing hard. Then she smiled, a soft, trembling thing. "You were right," she whispered. And then, with the last of her strength, she rose, turning her sword on the guards swarming us. The bay filled with fire and light. When the smoke cleared, we were free. Epilogue somewhere beyond Zorthia. We found refuge in a derelict mining ship drifting beyond the border stars. Her wounds healed slowly. The augmentations needed repair, but she lived. Sometimes, when the stars flicker against the glass, she sits beside me in silence. "You never answered," she said one night. "Why did you smile, that first day I knocked you down?" I looked at her, the faint scars on her cheek catching starlight. "Because," I said, "I saw something behind the armor. Something human." She stared at me for a long time, and then leaned in, resting her head against my shoulder. "I thought I had none left," she whispered. "Guess you were wrong," I said. Outside, the stars burned like distant memories, and for the first time since the war, I felt something I hadn't in years.
Hope.